Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to run a historical experiment and a cultural experiment, and basically I want to ask the question, I want to pose the question: what if Gary Gygax was born in 1997 and was releasing Dungeons and Dragons today in 2023? How would that change the world? Okay, so first I want to give credit where credit's due. I had a commenter. I recently did a video and I said, hey, guess what? If you're releasing through Kickstarter, that is a sign that you are releasing a low quality product, right? And the reality and the reason why is I'm one of the few people on YouTube that vehemently defends Hasbro D&D, right? Like, and you can go right and you can go left. You could find you could find an indie squawking about D&D, Hasbro D&D not good. Hasbro doesn't know what it's doing. You can find an OSR, the Hasbro D&D doesn't know what it's doing, and squawking, oh, they're terrible, they're so stupid, just you'll find thousands of these videos, right? And there are entire channels dedicated to this ridiculous piece of logic. Hey everybody, Hasbro D&D doesn't know how to make a game. And if they only made a game the way this OSR company or this indie company did, then they could have 10% of the sales and they could sacrifice their position as a global platform the way all OSR games and all indie games were. If only they do it our way, they could make way less money and have less cultural impact. Thanks. And I'm not kidding, there's like 100 of these channels, right? Like, it's just a ridiculous amount of panel. They're like, oh, hey, we want to tell you that Hasbro D&D outsells our entire industry. It outsells every OSR game and every indie game, and I only represent half of those. But they're doing it wrong. And me, with 1/10 of their sales, not even, right? Like, and no cultural impact, I'm telling them how to do it. Like, it is astounding the nonsense you will hear, right? And so the thing is, I was like, hey, the only reason you guys say all this nonsense is you are literally talking about specifically, you're just ignoring their global distribution and their quality frequency, right? Like they're like, oh, the Hasbro D&D should do it this way, and I'm like, your company doesn't produce quality the way D&D does, and it certainly doesn't produce frequency the way Dungeons and Dragons does, right? So you don't know what you're a lemonade stand talking at a 5-star restaurant, right? And so where do we land with this? I kind of want to, so let me explain where we land with this, construct, right? So here's the right way to understand this, okay? All right, so we have this situation, right? And basically, I did this video and I said, hey, Kickstarter is it is a signifier of low quality, right? And the fact that Hasbro D&D doesn't Kickstarter anything. They take all the costs, they take all the risk out of the hands of their customers. They're like, we're a real company. We'll build the product. You buy it, right? Like, and there's tons of OSRs. There's OSRs who have been in business for 30 years, Kickstarter and stuff like there's some kind of garage band, nonsense company, which they're not. They should be up at scale. They should be up and running, but they're not, right? Like, and that's the point, right? So somebody came back and said, hey, Gary Gygax would have Kickstarted today. If he was, if Gary Gygax had been born at a different time, and I did the math, if Gary Gygax was a Kickstarter today, he was 26 years old when he released Dungeons and Dragons. Let's assume that he'd be 26 years old today if he's going to release Dungeons and Dragons. That means he would have been born in 1997, right? So I reject the premise that he would Kickstarter, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. What I'm going to cover is even the Posit of this one commenter was a brilliant comment, right? And he was wrong, but remember, there's incredible value in wrong answers, right? A lot of people don't know that. There's incredible value in failure. There's incredible value in wrong answers. All of that, right? And so it's very interesting, right? So here we go. So if Gary Gygax was not born in 1938 the way he was, and then released in 1974, what if he was, wait a second. If he was born in 1938 and released, okay, I'm sorry, I did he would have been born in 1987. What if he was born in 1987 and he released in 2023. So he was 36 when he released Dungeons and Dragons. He was 36 years old when he released Dungeons and Dragons. He was born in 1938 and he released Dungeons and Dragons in 1974. So he was 36. Sorry, got my math wrong there. All right, but math is corrected now. So what if Gary Gygax was born in 1987 and he released today in 2023? How would the world change? And that is a very, very interesting question. And we're going to talk about it. All right, so first of all, what would have changed if Gary Gygax had not released Dungeons & Dragons in 1974 and instead he released Dungeons & Dragons in 2023? A lot would have been different. The entire world would have changed, right? So first of all, let's dig into this. All the things that would have changed if Gary Gygax released Dungeons & Dragons in 2023 and not in 1974. First and foremost, actually, you know what? I'm just going to start listing these. I'm not even going to list them in priority order, right? I'm just going to list the things that would have changed. Nerd culture would have changed massively, right? So the word nerd doesn't even function today, but in 1974, it very much functioned. It was person who lives in their bed, it was person who gets their books knocked out of their hands by the jock, right? Like, and they don't have any way to fight it, right? They just, they have to take it because they're physically less significant. They don't have any, and they don't have any cultural representation. They don't have friends who are going to back them up, right? They can't beat the jock with 6 nerds who are behind them because nerds are isolated, right? They're not a power base, right? What does nerd mean today? Nerd is a completely non-functioning word today. It has absolutely no definition and no usefulness today. People still use it out of tradition, but nerd actually today in 2023 means eccentric leader, right? It's somebody who myopically focuses on a specific lore, right? Well, guess what? This is a knowledge worker world, right? Knowledge workers rule, right? And the reality, and they said, if you're like, oh, I don't know about that, Scott, you need to read. You definitely need to read Fight Club. It explained it this simply in Fight Club. People who work sitting down make more than people who work standing up. Period. End of sentence. Nice, thanks. Next, try again. Right? That's the whole of it, baby. That's it. That's it in a nutshell, right? Like, there you go, right? Okay, that is rock solid true. Okay, all right. I love that. Exclamation, right? So nerd culture would be massively different, right? And the reason why is Gary Gygax turned nerds into eccentric leaders, and that's what they are today, right? Like if you myopically focus on lore, in 1974 you were getting, you couldn't get a date, you couldn't get money, right? Like nobody cared. You were like, where's your pocket protector? Now people are like, oh, you go and pocket protector? I got 16 different knowledge worker jobs that I know your myopathy will be perfect for. Here's money. Oh, and look at that. People that you would be dating are attracted by money. So everything changed, and that is huge, right? So that's the point. Is there are low millions of people today, just like me, right? Like I got a wife and 4 kids, and I've had 30 years of success based on first and foremost my Christianity. My Christianity has completely transformed my life. That is the first impact on my life, right? And my family came from that. But many, many nerds who did not have Christianity were able to get the same thing I did, right? Be able to perform in the market for decades, and were able to get a family, right? Somebody to attract someone and then have children with that someone, right? And that's from Gary. Literally low millions of people, nerds, their lives were catapulted forward because Gary, and that would not have happened without Gary Gygax. Nerd culture, we'd still be in the basements, we'd still be having our books knocked out of our hands, but Gary changed that. He was like, hey, your incredible myopathy on one piece of lore is outrageously valuable, and you just need to shift it to another person. So that's just one change that 1987 born Gary Gygax would have produced. That's my humble opinion. Every word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.